Third grade ELA, text set 5, author, illustrator, study, Patricia Polacco. Our read aloud goal is to recognize Patricia Polacco's writing style and the style of her illustrations. Today I'm going to read another story by Patricia Polacco. This one is called The Keeping Quilt. There's that, and then here's the back cover. Okay. What do you notice about the cover? Look at the quilt. It's the only thing that is in color. The other things in the image are in all black and white. As I read, you can be thinking about that. What do you notice about the women on the cover? They are wearing traditional Russian headscarves called babuskas. Explain Polacco's grandparents on her mother's side came from Russia, and that many of her books include details from Russian culture in the text and illustrations. When my great-grandma, Anna, came to America, she wore the same thick overcoat and big boots she had worn from farm work. But her family weren't dirt farmers anymore. In New York City, her father's work was hauling things on a wagon, and the rest of the family made artificial flowers all day. Everyone is in a hurry, and it was so crowded, not like in back home Russia. But all the same, it was their home, and most of their neighbors were just like them. So look at the illustration. What do you notice? This story begins a long time ago, probably more than 100 years ago. The only thing she had left of back home Russia was her dress and the babushka she liked to throw up into the air when she was dancing. When Anna went to school, English sounded to her like pebbles dropping into shallow water. Shh, shh, shh. In 6 months she was speaking English. Her parents almost never learned, so she spoke English for them. And her dress was getting too small. After her mother had sewn her a new one, she took her old dress and babushka. Then from a basket of old clothes she took Uncle Vladimir's shirt, Aunt Havila's nightdress, and an apron of Aunt Natasha's. We will make a quilt to help us always remember home, Anna's mother said. It will be like having the family in back home Russia dance around us at night. So look at the picture and think about what I just read. There are people dancing in the background. What do you think they are drawn so lightly? Why do you think they're drawn so lightly in this picture? And so it was. Anna's mother invited all the neighborhood ladies. They cut out animals and flowers from the scraps of clothing. Anna kept the needles threaded and handed them to ladies as they needed them. The border of the quilt is made of Anna's babushka. So there are a lot of things that make this quilt special. The fact that it is made of family members' clothing, that neighbor women helped, and that even Anna played a role. What a special quilt. On Friday nights, Anna's mother would say the prayers that started the Sabbath, the family atchala and chicken soup. The quilt was the tablecloth. Anna grew up and fell in love with great-grandpa Sasha. To show he wanted to be her husband, he gave Anna a gold coin, a dried flower, and a piece of rock salt, all tied in the linen handkerchief. The gold was for wealth, the flower for love, and the salt so their lives would have flavor. She accepted the hanky. They were engaged. A huppah is a... Oh. I'm not done. Under the wedding huppah, Anna and Sasha promised each other love and understanding. After the wedding, the men and women celebrated separately. So, a huppah is a canopy that is held above the bride and groom during a traditional Jewish wedding ceremony. And this is the huppah. When my grandma Carla was born, Anna wrapped her daughter in the quilt to welcome her warmly into the world. Carla was given a gift of gold, flour, and salt, and bread. Gold so she would never know poverty. A flower so she would always know love. Salt so her life would always have flavor. And bread so that she would never know hunger. Carla learned to keep the Sabbath and to cook and clean and do washing. Married you'll be someday, Anna told Carla. And Again, the quilt became a wedding huppah, this time for Carla's wedding to Grandpa George. Men and women celebrated together, but they still did not dance together. In Carla's wedding bouquet was a gold coin, bread, and salt. So Sabbath means resting and taking part in religious activities from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. Carla and George moved to a farm in Michigan, and great-grandma Anna came to life with them. The quilt once again wrapped a new little girl, Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen called Anna Lady Grandma. She had grown very old and was sick a lot of the time. The quilt kept her legs warm. On Anna's 98th birthday, the cake was a kuka, a rich cake with raisins and candied fruit in it. When great-grandma Anna died, prayers were said to lift her soul to heaven. My mother, Mary Ellen, was now grown up. When Mary Ellen left home, she took the quilt with her. When she became a bride, the quilt became her huppah. For the first time, friends who were not Jews came to the wedding. My mother wore a suit, but in her bouquet were gold, bread, and salt. So did you notice that the family's traditions are changing with time? How is Mary Ellen's wedding like her mother's and grandmother's weddings? How is it different? The quilt welcomed me, Patricia, into the world, and it was a tablecloth for my first birthday party. At night, I would trace my fingers around the edges of each animal on the quilt before I went to sleep. I told my mother stories about the animals on the quilt. She told me whose sleeve had made the horse, whose apron who had made the chicken, whose dress had made the flowers, and whose babasca went around the edge of the quilt. The quilt was a pretend cape when I was in the bull ring, or sometimes a tent in the steaming Amazon jungle. At my wedding, to Enzo Murillo, men and women danced together in my banquet, where gold, bread, and salt, and a sprinkle of wine, so I would always know laughter. 20 years ago, I held Tracy Dennis in the quilt for the first time. Someday, she, too, will leave home, and she will take the quilt with her. What a beautiful family story. I wonder if they still use the quilt today. What do you think? And our read aloud goal was to recognize Patricia Polacco's writing style and the style of her illustrations. So what did you know about that?